Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you Monday, December the 30th, the year 2019. Let's talk trading. You control how you trade. You know, I always say it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. But I really don't believe most traders realize that they control how they trade. Now, you don't control the outcome of the trade, but you control how you trade. And the reason I'm talking about this is I was just watching one of the Stoic videos, and the guy was talking about how he was talking to some football players and said, look, no matter what, you control how you play. Now, it doesn't matter about the coach, doesn't matter about your teammates, doesn't matter about the other team, doesn't matter about the refs. No matter what they do or don't do, no matter what happens or doesn't happen, when you're on the field, you control how you play. You either give it your all or you just go through the motions. And the thing is, even more important is you only control how you play in the moment. Hey, that last play, that's over. If you missed a tackle or if you made a touchdown, that's over. What matters is right here, right now. So I thought I should talk about that because that's all that matters, especially, we're coming up to the year end and, a new year is going to begin. In fact, a new decade's going to begin. And if you just focus in the moment on what you're doing, controlling how you trade, then possibly you're going to get better results. And the other thing that I received this email this morning, and it was about, you know, giving up convincing other people that you're right or they're wrong because you can't control what other people think. You can't. I make these videos, and every now and then there's somebody's going to put something negative out there or send me something negative via email. I can't control that. But what I can control is how I react to it. I can ignore it. I can respond to it. But I just keep doing what I'm doing. And some people are going to appreciate it, and some people aren't. And most people don't even know I exist. you know? And that's one of the things about the Stoics is that, if you think about how many great people have come before, they're all dust in the wind. They're worm food. You know, And most people, they're gone and forgotten. Most things that are built, they've crumbled. I mean, I love that one meme out on Facebook where they show this ancient road, a couple thousand years old. It's still functional. Yet these new roads, modern roads, they got these huge potholes in it. Just kind of shows you how far civilization has come. And in fact, that reminds me of another email I received this weekend, something I subscribed to, and it had to do with this guy who had to travel hundreds of miles to save his mother from being basically, burned as a witch because of this book that he wrote it that had some allegories in it, metaphors and analogies. And they said, well, this is about him, and his and in the book his mother's this sorcerer, so she must be a witch. I mean, it just goes to show how nothing has really changed in centuries. There's always these two competing forces. I mean, that's what happens in trading. You got buyers and sellers, two competing forces. But it to me, it's just really amusing when you think about it. But back to the main thing is you control how you trade. You don't control the outcome, and that's why you have risk and money management. You use risk and money management. You control your risk and your money management, just like you control what method you use. You get to pick it. Nobody forces a method upon you. They're not putting a gun to your head saying you've got to use this. You scour around and you maybe pick somebody's method, or maybe you take a piece here and a piece there and throw in something of your own and come up with your own method. And you control your execution and performance. I mean, you control whether or not you follow your own trading rules, your own method. You control whether or not you do it, when you're supposed to do it. Those are all, you control what instrument you trade, whether it's a Forex pair or a stock, a commodity, a future, an option. You get to control all of that. It's all in your control. So, as I mentioned, you don't control the outcome of the trade, and that's why you have to have your risk management in place. And you make sure you get to control whether or not you lose more than you're willing to lose on a particular trade. And you do that by setting your stop loss and position size according to the amount you want to risk per trade. Now, of course, boys and girls, these videos are for educational purposes only, and your results may differ from mine. And that trading is very, very, very risky, and you can lose all your money. And because of that, if you're seeking trading advice, investment advice, financial advice, you need to seek it from an accredited financial professional. That way, if you lose all your money or a big part of it, you know you got your advice from an accredited financial professional rather than from some guy that you watched a YouTube video from, or some guy or woman or non-binary person that posts things on the internet. Okay, the simple chart here, we're looking at an H4 chart, and we've got 4 horizontal lines. The previous day's open, high, and low, and the current day's open. And you can see what's happened. We opened, we went up almost to the previous day's open, but then we came right down through the previous day's low, and prices sunk. Oh, right now it's 54 pips below that previous day's low. On the weekly, last night when I made the video, all the gaps had filled already, and you can see dollar yen is going further down. In fact, now it's 80 pips below the yearly open, and it looks like it wants to come back to about 108.54. If you notice these big long candles, price just has a tendency to want to come back down to that open. Those big candles. You see this big red candle here. You see how price returned to that open. You see this big green candle here. You see how price returned to the open, and this big red candle and price returned to the open, and this big green candle price returned. Do you see the pattern here? And right here, this big red one. You see that's something that I just observed. Oh, I guess it was last year. I think I made those return bars, that indicator. It's just something to take note of. I mean, does it always happen? I don't know. I haven't. This is kind of one of those eyeball things. How do I determine what's a big candle versus what's a small candle? I just look and see. I mean, I guess I could put some math on it and then tweak it, but then you're almost curve fitting. And so this is just one of those eyeball things. And once again, you see these big candles. And you see what's happened here, that we are now below the first trading day of the month's low right there. And you see and here's the first trading day of the year's low. So you see we dropped down into this zone. And right here, we went below February's open, almost hit August open, first trading day of those months. And you can see once again, we went through last December's low, first trading day of last December. Inside bar, if you took that trade, 54 pips to the good. Once again, showing that low break, only one pair, pound Canadian, over 100 pips. Surprisingly, though, got a lot of movement on the dollar yen in a relative sense. 71 pips. We haven't seen a bar that big in a while, or a range that big, I should say. And we put in the H1 lowest open a few bars ago. You can see prices moved up. We did take out the pivot, and then, of course, prices dropped down. And on the rat zone, we could actually look at the dollar yen, and you can see green rats have now been taking part of some cheese. Oh, and somebody was asking me about the rat zone. Hopefully you're watching today. The rat zone is something I actually observed looking at the pound dollar, and this was years ago. Let me see. Let me bring up a nice daily chart here. Let's look at the pound dollar. Let's scrunch this in. I noticed something when I was looking at the daily chart, and the wicks, they were like, for the most part, they were pretty big. And so what I did was I ran a frequency distribution on the size of these wicks, and I saw that more times than not on the pound dollar, those numbers were greater than 20. So they were like, I think it was something where usually it was like 30 or 40 pips. So what I did was, like I said, I ran that frequency distribution, and I start looking at that trade. So you can see here, these dots, that's the high, that's the low. That's 20 below the high, that's 20 below the low. I mean, sorry, 20 above the low. And you can see here how price just seems to usually wind up between this 20, this minus 20 from the high, and this plus 20 from the low. That's where it usually winds up at the end of the day. So I thought, that seems like that's kind of like money to be made. So once again, it put in the low, and you can see price is 22 pips below the high and 70 pips above the low. So in the rat trade, once price makes a current daily high or current daily low, you start to look for a reason to reverse. And usually what we do, or what I do, is I look to see for what I coin the rat reversal. So if price is going up, a green candle closes, then a red candle forms, and then you'd go short at the low of that candle. And for the other is a red candle would close and a green candle close, and then you go long at the high. But you only do it within the zone. So as you can see here, so you don't want to take a trade above this line or below this line. Okay? So down here, you want to enter, and you don't have to use that particular, any entry down here is a valid green rat entry, and any entry up here is a valid red rat entry. So that's how that works. So I hope I've explained that. And there's some rat zone videos if you want to really get into it. Okay, you can see here the dollar yen. We went down here and we took out the monthly pivot again. You can see here where we took out this pivot. So now we've taken out all of the December 2019 pivots. Once again, price doesn't like staying between the lines, right? Out, in and out of the wick zone, across the horizontal lines. Not much action there. And here, Einstein lane, not much action. So, fellow traders, just remember what's in your control. It's not what you trade, it's how you trade it.